Good evening, and here we are, and a beautiful, yes. Well, I guess we should start over, but maybe you'll forgive me on that one. It's interesting times. I'm going through a folder of pictures I've scanned in over the last while, memories, nostalgia, mourning, and celebrating, all at the same time. So many things happen during this COVID-19 pandemic. And yes, I'll call it that because that's what the world calls it. What you call it, that's entirely up to you. I heard Brian Pallister, the Premier of Manitoba, share an emotional video today. While I don't agree with a lot of the things that he may be doing, is doing, and I am not sure who's prompting him to do some of those things, but he certainly shared from his heart something I think he may have needed to do even sooner. But that doesn't in any way take away what he said. And you can all find it yourself as to what he said. I know people will poo-poo it, people will do whatever they want, but at the same time, we have a situation that is difficult to assess because we hear so many conflicting stories, so much conflicting news. Some would call it fake news, some would call it other news. But at the same time, it's a situation we've got. So I went into my photos tonight, and forgive me if you get bored with them, you can just pass them over. But if some of them have some meaning for you, let me know. And I'd appreciate it if you would share in addition to clicking on a like or a heart or a love, whatever it may be. I appreciate all of them, but that isn't really why I'm doing this. If I really wanted to get into this in a big way, I have 27,000 followers on across 3-4 different platforms of social media. No, I want to continue to share. Yes, I make a living off of writing articles, like I wrote the one that you can read just before this post. Yes, I was president of the Canadian Farm Writers Federation, an honor that I was so happy to accept and be. And one of the reasons I appreciated so much that opportunity, I had been a member of the National Association of Farm Broadcasters of America, and I'd come home from there and I'd be so pumped as to the work I'm doing, the importance of it. And I'd come here and we'd have sessions with our Manitoba Farm Writers and Broadcasters Association. And then we'd have sessions at the national level. We'd travel. People would be paid their airfare and hotels and foods and lodge, all of that. And their own companies back home would be thinking we were really into it in a big way. So I introduced, when I was a vice president and Jim Ray was the president of the Canadian Farm Writers Federation, and we hosted a convention in Winnipeg. And for the first time, we were able to put together a full day of professional development as part of the convention, not just a day of getting together, and that was all good. No, we wanted farm writers and broadcasters to get value, especially the companies that were paying for it. So we were able to do that. And we also were able to move the bar, the alcoholic beverage, into a different room and not put the emphasis on that so much, but put the emphasis on communication, fellowship, and learning. Wow, what a blessed time that was. And in a later broadcast, podcast, whatever you want to call it, slideshow, I'm going to also share with you some of our experiences in 1982 when Judy and myself had the privilege of going to Europe. I was president of the association at that time. Jack Murda was our member of parliament. Jack's wife, Lynn, was then working for the ambassador to Canada. Ronald Reagan was the president at the time. And so I asked Jack, I says, you know what, I need some help. And because she had access to all the various ambassadors from the different countries, I said, Jack, can you help me? Boy, did he ever help me. In fact, he, in my opinion, not complaining in any way, shape, or form, Jack really went to it. And so he sent letters endorsing me and asking them to host me in their countries. Wow, and how did that ever work out? Awesome. I had so many countries I had to say no and say I'm coming at another time. I never really did, but first and foremost, we were guests of the British Information Services in the UK, and they hosted us for 2 days. One day in England, maybe it was even 3 days. 2 days in England, and then one day in Scotland. And I have a picture of Judy being in her glory. Well, not the glory she's in right now, but we got a personal tour from the chauffeur at the Edinburgh Castle in Scotland. And that's one of the main castles that Queen Elizabeth, at that time at least, was using. We even got a chance to look into their bedroom. Wow, what a blessed time. And we stayed in the Caledonian Hotel just so when we were laying in bed, we could actually see the castle up on the hill. What a beautiful thought, beautiful sight. And so for 3 days, we were the hosts, we were the guests. In fact, we stayed for a night in the Shakespearean Hotel where Shakespeare had stayed at one point. It was rather old. It was rickety, but it was awesome. And it was, so we had, we spent 3 days, and then we spent 3 days with John Deere in Mannheim, Germany. John Frank was the president of the John Deere Canada for a number of years. His English wasn't all that good, but he was president, a good president for the John Deere company here in Canada. But he came from Germany. And so they did a tour, and we had him come to Manitoba. And I was then the president of the Manitoba Farm Writers Federation and Broadcasters, and we hosted them. And there was bless his heart, Rod was his name. He had a little too much to drink that evening, and he went after Mr. Frank. And he couldn't handle it. And I knew that he was getting uncomfortable. So I stepped in and I protected him from an onslaught by a man, an awesome journalist, but he'd had too much to drink. So when I started to get ready for our trip to Europe, Mike Noonan was a public relations officer for John Deere, and I asked him, can you help me? Wow, can they help me? Mr. Frank had then moved back to Germany, and he was president of Germany and surrounding countries in Middle East, I believe. And so in Germany, in Canada, they told the company in Europe to look after me and look after me well. And so we spent 3 days, my wife and I. We had a full chauffeur, a large Mercedes, and they toured us around, visiting farms, businesses, you name it. In fact, the last trip home, I was so tired because I had offered to speak in German, and it's a lot more difficult speaking in German and doing interviews of German farmers in Germany. And, and I did. And so we had an awesome time. And so on the way back through the Black Forest, beautiful scenery. Judy was sitting in the back. I'm sitting in the front, and I'm snoring. He's giving us this guided tour, and I'm snoring. She was just slightly embarrassed. But we got through that one too. And so that was our trip. And then the last week we actually spent on a holiday. Oh, no, we did spend a couple of days touring Holland, Netherlands. We were, again, guests of the information services. And that's where I learned what the whole system of diking and everything else was all about. And also, again, an awesome time. The last week we spent with Ben and Susan Dueck. You saw the picture here. You can go back, 1971, married in a double wedding ceremony in Altona. They joined us in München, in München, and we spent a week together traveling through Germany, traveling through Austria, traveling through Switzerland. And what a time we had with them as well. Well, I just wanted to clarify some of the things that I do, some of the things that I continue to do when I sit here by myself in the evening. Yes, it has to do with memories, nostalgia, mourning, and celebration. My goodness, what don't we have to celebrate here in Canada? Yes, I know it's for some people it's tough and really tough going right now. But there will come, as the Bible says, or the song says, after the dawn, the light appeareth, and it will again for you and for me. God bless and have yourself a great and blessed weekend. That's Siemens says.